This year, 40 churches, Christian churches, have been set on fire in France alone. One church that burnt to the ground was built in 1854, so it survived 2 world wars, but it had been set on fire. Now, nobody's saying it overtly, but it's highly suspected that most of those fires are set by Muslims, radical Muslims. There was a pictorial on Twitter that showed that church fires in France in the past 4 years, and there are literally hundreds.
Yep. Same thing is beginning to happen now in Canada.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
All right, I didn't know that. Just on the idea that Islam is a peaceful religion, there are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world. You may have heard this stat before. And it's estimated that 15 to 25% of those are radical Islamists dedicated to the destruction of the Western civilization. So that means there's 300 million Muslims who potentially are radical Islamists, basically. And what it also means is the fact there's a peaceful majority is academic and irrelevant.
Well, only if they're evenly spread.
Yes, only if they're evenly spread.
They won't be evenly spread.
Yeah. And I think we've seen various videos, and I saw a video on YouTube where a woman, an Islamic woman, was saying most Muslims are peaceful, which is technically true based on that. However, you can also argue that most Germans were peaceful before the Second World War. Most Russians were peaceful, but 20 million of them were murdered and killed. Most Chinese people are peaceful, but 70 million of them have been murdered and killed over time. And most Japanese were peaceful before the Second World War, but then 12 million people were killed by them. So this mostly peaceful crap about Islam is really a nonsense.
I don't think it's a nonsense. I think it means we've got a problem with radical Islam, and the moderate Muslims have got a problem with radical Islam, and it's a problem the West needs to solve. And I said last time, we only solve it when the moderate Muslims are empowered to be the major part of the answer to this. We can't solve it for them, and I still don't think this is a big problem in the West. I think it just takes politicians with a backbone to mobilise moderate Muslims to be able to deport Muslims immigrant Muslims who do not match our expectations of them, and also to clamp down on radical Muslims as well. But we don't do any of it, so it's just a free-for-all at the moment.
Yeah, I think you and I continue to disagree on this, and it's interesting. When we did our History of Islam part 1, a lot of your viewers agreed with me in that they said that you are confusing, as a lot of people do, the religion of Islam with the ideology and the living of Islam, basically, and that Christianity and Islam cannot be compared, because Christianity is a religion and remains in its lane as a religion, if you like, whereas Islam is a way of life and a theology base, an ideology.
Only today.
Yes.
But 1,000 years ago, Christianity was like that.
Yeah.
So things can change.
True. However, I think the difference is Christianity, and I'm not an expert, and maybe you're not an expert either, but I think Christianity has never said the word in the Bible is inviolate and nothing can be, and it has to be taken literally or whatever. Whereas I think Islam says this is inviolate, it can't be changed, this is the way you have to live your life.
1,000 years ago, Christianity was saying exactly the same thing about the Bible.
Okay.
Exactly the same thing. Word of God.
Yeah.
That's why they persecuted Galileo.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it wasn't in the Bible.
Yeah, that's true.
Not in the Bible, it can't be true.
Yeah.
So we were just as backwards.
Yeah.
We're just 700 years older.
Yeah. But we haven't got 700 years, Nick.
I'm not fearful of radical Islam, because radical Islam doesn't work anywhere in the world. Muslims don't run any decent countries anywhere in the world. They're a danger to us, of course, they're a danger to us, but it's a problem that can be solved. What I don't want to hear off people is this is the problem that can't be solved, because I'll tell you what the answer is then. We've got to kill them all. And I don't want to kill millions and millions of Muslims across Europe.
No, I don't think that the answer is to kill all Muslims, but I think it's got to be.
But that's where it goes. So if it is, we can't change Islam. What's the solution?
Well, no, I don't think you can't change Islam, but I think you can't underestimate Islam either. I think, there's a very, very powerful ideology there.
Yeah.
That wants to achieve certain things, that requires certain things like Sharia law in order to make that happen. And I think that is a hard thing to change. So I think part of the way you do it is you say, and it's not just Islam or Muslims, it's kind of any religion. Yes, you can come to this country. Yes, you can live here, and you can practice your religion, but you practice your religion behind closed doors in the sanctity of your churches or your houses, and it will have no impact on our society, on our culture, on our laws, basically. So I think you put conditions, and you yourself have often said, part of the problem with immigration in this country is there's so much of it that these communities don't have time to integrate, and they become parochial communities that exist amongst themselves and perpetuate their cultures and ideologies and I think Islam is the most extreme version of that in terms of the nature of its ideology. So I think part of the way you resolve it is by saying you have to embrace British culture, British religion, British traditions, and your religious ideologies cannot seep into which is what's happening.
Yeah.
Because there are Sharia courts already in England and all.
All that never should have started in the first place.
Yes, I agree. No, I agree. So
if we're looking at new Muslims, well, I want to end all immigration. So let's end immigration.
Yes.
So there's no issue then with new Muslims coming.
Yes.
Then we need to deal with the Muslims in this country to a certain extent, such as anybody who wasn't born, any immigrant who wasn't born here. Forget Muslim. Any immigrant who wasn't born here. I think most of them should go home.
Right.
So maybe not all, maybe not 100%, but most of them should be going.
So you're laying out your framework now of how this is resolved.
Yeah.
So we may end up in the same place here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking because anyway, go on. So end all immigration.
End all immigration
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most foreign nationals or people who weren't born in this country need to go home.
Yeah.
And then we need to support the British Muslims in this country to take control of their religion and have it the religion they want it to be in this country. The fact we're having no more radicals coming over, no more imams coming over. We've got people who are born in this country who have to spend a lot of money and time integrating people who were born here into this culture. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to be hard work, but it's doable, because it has to be doable, because the alternative is, what do you do then with all those millions of Muslims in this country who were born here? What do you do with them?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, well, I know what the answer is for a lot of people. We kill them.
Yeah. No, for me, it's not so much, when we're talking about it, it's not so much saying what the answer is. For me, it's pointing out to hopefully you and to our listeners that this is a big issue. Because I think there's a lot of people who say, oh, Islam's a peaceful religion, everything's fine, it doesn't matter, integration is fine.
If you're watching this program, I think you know Islam's not peaceful.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of, I'm learning more about it as I go along. And I'm kind of trying to articulate what I'm seeing and understanding as I go forward. And as I say, I'm learning more about Islam as I read more about it as well. And I'm starting to realise it is a problem. It is a problem in this country, Islam, as it is at the moment.
Radical Islam is a problem in this country.
Yeah.
It's a bit like socialism. It depends who you speak to, depends on their definition of socialism. Everybody thinks they have the correct understanding of socialism. That's why it won't die. But Hitler was a socialist. Mussolini was a socialist. Stalin was a socialist. Mao was a socialist. Jeremy Corbyn's a socialist. My friend's a socialist. You'll know someone who's a socialist. Keir Starmer's a socialist. They're not all the same. They don't have the same ideas. Their versions of socialism are all completely different. But they call themselves socialist. That's the same in the Muslim religion.
I think that's true.
They all call themselves Muslims, but they're all on different paths, doing different things, believing in different versions of it, and that's absolutely acceptable. I want to support the moderate Muslims to go down the path they want to go down. At the moment, in many countries, those moderate Muslims are being slaughtered by the radicals.
Yes,
because they're
true.
saying you're not practicing the right type of Islam. Only we know the right type of Islam. So Islam is a problem. Radical Islam is a problem. I don't think it's an existential threat to this country or to Europe, because radical Islam, by definition, is a failing culture. And it's failed all over the world. They may cause us problems, they may kill us, but their days of conquering ended a long time ago. They're a failing culture, they're a backwards culture, a lot of that radical Islam. So they're not the existential threat many people think they are.
Yeah, and as we've said before, and quite interestingly, we talked about the Iranian Revolution in 1979, but as you and I have said, before that happened, all the Muslims used to wear suits, nice skirts. The women didn't wear hijabs. Yeah. So, before that happened...
But what happened there was the Cold War.
Yes.
The Russians and Americans started using proxies to fight their battles.
Yes.
So the Americans funded the Taliban to fight the Russians.
Right, yeah.
And then Americans went in, well, we'd already funded the Taliban. Other countries, the Russians would fund that country to fight because they were against the West. And all of us were funding the radical Islamists because we were using them against our enemy.
Yeah.
The reason why we've got so many radical Islamists in this country, especially from the 70s onwards, is we were using them to fight wars in places like Libya and those places. So they came here and we used them to fight the Russians. And while they were there, they were planning to fight here as well.
Yeah.
And it was that two sides of the sword. We only saw one side we were using there, but they were using us. But before the 60s and 70s, radical Islam wasn't that much of a problem.
Exist, no. But also don't forget that a lot of it was funded by the Gulf states once the oil came out there, basically.
And why are they funding it? Because they're funding it to fight their enemies. So they're funding it to fight Iran.
Yeah.
So these are all proxy wars, and they're all using the radical Islamists until it gets too much.
Well, I've heard recently that Saudi Arabia stopped doing this. They stopped quite a while ago. And why did they stop?
Well, there's a good video of the Prince of Saudi Arabia at a news conference speaking in English, saying radical Islam is a problem, and what I foresee is radical Islam is going to be a problem for my country, and those people will all be coming out of the West because you're not dealing with radical Islam.
Oh, really?
That's what he said.
That's interesting.
So he's saying
West... So he's saying it's a threat to Saudi now.
He's saying the West are breeding radical Islam because you're not clamping down on it. In those countries like Saudi Arabia, they're killing them all, and have been. If you're found to be radical Islamist against the monarchy, you die. Where in
because
Europe,
of course the monarchy, the monarchy and the tribal structure doesn't suit.
No, it
Islam.
doesn't. It doesn't.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
So radical Islam can. It's not easy is the wrong word. Radical Islam can be dealt with. We just need to know how to do it and deal with it.
Yes.
And yeah.
I think what I'm saying is it's a problem. I would be interested in knowing what the solution is in this country.
Yeah.
To it. And I know Calvin Robinson's solution is ship all Pakistanis back to Pakistan regardless. There may be something in between that and where we are now, I guess. We're going to end on some positive news around Islam, which is a further, I don't know what period this is, but apparently a further 1 million Iranians have converted to Christianity in Iran. And the Muslim percentage in Iran is, guess how much it is now?
39%.
30%.
Oh.
So that is quite shocking as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we assume Iran is a radical Muslim hotbed full of Muslims running around with scimitars chopping Christians' heads off.
So Iran is is the strangest country in the Middle East, and it's because they have a radical Islamist government that hates the West.
Yeah.
With a population that isn't radical and loves the West. Every other country around there is the opposite. They have a pro-Western government.
Yeah.
But the population hate the West.
Ah, that's interesting.
Iran is the only one that's different there.
I wonder why.
Persians were never a backward people. Persians had a huge empire before the
Yeah,
Greeks.
and also the Persians were not Muslims for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were conquered.
Yeah, there was is it Zoroastrians? I don't know what religion that is.
Yeah, it's that.
Yeah.
Had their own language,
Yeah.
Farsi, so don't speak Arabic. They were very proud, with a very long, fantastic history. They're not a tribal people. They were an empire people. And they were pro-Western. But then socialists came along and ruined it all for them, didn't they? Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers, I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.